trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat. Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
Well, just what Nick said, I think that's right. I mean, there isn't a Democratic establishment anymore. There's not even a Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party is a meaningless notion that the party, like the Republican Party, has been hollowed out and privatized to a large extent. There are Democratic elites, and so when we're talking about the Democratic establishment, we're really talking about a number of, a bunch of people that Nick also knows well, which really means Democratic donors.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
There are just 8 days left in what is the most important election of our lifetime.
Where did you guys come to a conclusion about why Clinton had such a hard time just owning that she did something wrong with the email server?
You know, I know that Russia and other forces would love us to have a debate. This is exactly what they want. They want us to have a debate about the internal structure of Hillary's campaign, what's true, what's not true. And I'm just not going to play that. I'm sorry.
We came, we saw, we died.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
You know, people have said, if you look at, for example, the heat that ended up around the bend the knee, Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Many smart people have said it actually was not a thing. The Russian bots started taking out. Yes.
But I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should be running.
This is not about.
If you're like me, one of the millions suffering from pain caused by migraine, Nurtec ODT may help. It's the only medication that can treat a migraine when it strikes and prevent migraine attacks.
Trump and the Republicans lose on Tuesday, and if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only three things he mentioned in a sentence, a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean...
I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today.
And I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I can't do it.
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Citizens of the internet, welcome to another week of politics. Thank you all for sticking with me through everything, through thick and thin, through technical difficulties, through multiple administrations, a lot of you, through thick and through thin, through 4th of July after 4th of July. This is episode 149, which really isn't a lot when you think about it. I've been doing this now. I was going back through some of my old videos, and I've been doing this now since 2023, I want to say. So 3 years, going on 3 years. What's interesting to note, and I thought, just kind of reviewing some of my content, is my very first video ever, my very first, upload outside of the live stream thing, because I started doing this on Zoom before I had the StreamYard platform. But my very first individual video upload to my YouTube channel was a video criticizing Tucker Carlson, really just kind of calling out Tucker Carlson for being wrong. I don't even remember exactly what it was about. I think it had something to do with the immigration. But anyway, I've come a long way. We've all come a long way over the last couple of years. So I'm going to take a quick sip of my coffee here. Make sure all systems are go. Make sure that the mic is firing properly. Make sure that the camera's functional. And we're going to dive right into it. But first, yesterday was the 4th of July. As you can tell by the calendar, today is the 5th of July, Sunday, July 5th. And I was driving around last night amidst the 4th of July celebrations. I want to paint a little picture for you here. The smell of gunpowder was heavy on the wind. Some poetry here for you. Real poetic. Real poetic stuff about to happen here. So I was driving around. The smell of gunpowder was heavy on the wind. And it got me thinking, first of all, this must be what it's like to live in a war zone. War zone. I started thinking back to earlier times in our history, like the Civil War, for example, where the weapons are very primitive and basically just gunpowder explosions, real similar to fireworks, And I came to this epiphany, conclusion, if you will, that Americans love explosions. So fireworks, just explosions in general. Americans love that shit. And I thought about how, in some ways, our annual fireworks display on the 4th of July is a form of propaganda. And roll with me here. I'm not trying to be some crazy extreme leftist or something, but I guess I kind of am to some degree. That if you map me out on a political chart, maybe not, because I'm not anti-capitalist. I'm not against capitalism. However, I do think that our annual fireworks display might be propaganda to some degree. And here's why. I think it trains us to love explosions and war in general, just warlike environments, because it's something that we've been taught. It's part of our psyche, really. I was watching as I was driving around these little kids running around with snaps and M80s, not necessarily M80s, but sparklers, whatever. And it made me think back, I was that kid, 40 years ago. And every year of my life, we have this big fireworks show every year, annually. It's just a year thing. So this is my 47th, obviously I don't remember the ones when I was 1 or 2 or whatever. But, let's say 45th, 4th of July. And every year we have this huge fireworks display, this huge, massive explosions. Poor dogs, by the way. Poor dogs. They'll be fine. They're fucking spoiled. But anyway, I need to call. Sidebar. I need to call. I'm trying to clean up the swearing. I do a lot of just throwing around the F word and stuff. So I'm going to clean that. We'll just watch. I'm going to get a little bit more focused in how I speak because I am a little sloppy. I think the constant cussing is a little sloppy. Anyway, to keep going with this rant here, it's ingrained in our psyche, these explosions. And even if there's nothing to celebrate, we're celebrating the 4th of July with these explosions every year. That's the day that America gets to play with fireworks everywhere across the country. And it's fun. And I'm not saying, ban fireworks. That's not where I'm going here. But here I am kind of driving through the streets, and there's these little kids with sparklers and Roman candles and snappers, and you can see the joy on the kids' faces. It's like Christmas in summer. They go, we get to explode things. Until an M80 blows off little Timmy's fingertip, or a discarded, still hot sparkler melts to the bottom of someone's foot as they, choke down their otter pop. Deep reference for some of you there. But the 4th just kind of seems like the 4th of July to me, and this is my opinion, seems like another kind of brick in the war propaganda wall, if you will, when I meditate real hard on it. And listen, again, I love fireworks. I love explosions. I'm American. So I love fireworks and explosions. But what about drone shows? I saw a drone show that I was like, wow, that's pretty killer, actually, that they could do that. And like high schools have drone show technology now. It's that cheap. It's that consumer ready at this point. I shouldn't say it's that. It's consumerly available. We'll say it that way. It's not cheap enough that it's consumer ready. Let's say it that way. Anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent, but it seems like we have this sentimental attachment to things that are antiquated. And fireworks might be one of those things. Caveman technology that, most of the civilized world has already moved beyond. But we can't move beyond in the USA because someone's making some cash off of it. Tradition, whatever. It's like, guns being one example. And if you love guns, I'm not trying to yuck your yum. I'm not trying to take your guns. I'm just saying that wars in the future ain't going to be fought with guns. Like, bring your gun to a fight with hypersonic missiles and drones, and you're going to lose with your gun. I'm sorry. That's the reality I'm trying to point. I'm not saying that, if you like to shoot guns, you're a bad person, or, we should, take away all the guns because my feelings are hurt by guns or whatever. No, I'm just saying that this is another example of antiquated technology. Gas-powered cars are another one. And again, before you get mad, this is a very sentimental attachment that people have to gas-powered cars. And this is played on by the propaganda of the energy companies who are losing market share. But again, it's this sentimental attachment. I hear people revving up their cars, and it sounds so primitive to me. Like, brr, brr. I'm like, oh, yeah, you got one of those loud, inefficient fucking pig vehicles that runs off the tar that we dig out of the ground. And as an audio guy, I get the appeal of the roar. I love metal. I love death metal. So I understand why people, that like Harleys just like the sound of the engine and all that. And more power to you. Again, I'm not hating on that. I'm just saying that as a general, like, that could be some antique thing that you still do. But as a general population, most of the world has moved on from that technology. It's antiquated. And, you know, I used to make this argument with DJs that spin vinyl and we're all elitist about it. Like, I only spin vinyl and people with computers are cheating and they suck. You know, it's like, if you commit to that, fine. Like, I respect it. Again, I respect the willingness to learn the craft of vinyl because it's important that that stays valid and everything. You know, I'm not taking, but also it's like telling someone they're not making a real phone call unless they use a rotary phone. It's the technology has moved beyond that. And it's cute that you're still, you know, that there's still the sentimental attachment to that. And there should be a respect for that as well, because that technology started in that form. But as technology evolved, you know, there became more efficient ways to do those things. And, you know, I say this just to say that, you know, with electric cars, just to kind of round this off a little bit, it's funny because there's a lot of these prepper type, you know, end is nigh type people who will say, like, you know, well, dude, you got your electric car, but when the fucking grid goes down, what are you going to do? You can't plug it in then, can you? To them, I say just the opposite. You know, like, if you have a gas powered car, it's going to be real fucking difficult to get gasoline if society collapses or the grid goes down. I mean, you already have trouble getting gasoline when there's like a bad hurricane or a bad winter storm and there's gas lines and it creates a huge disruption in society. You know, a hurricane takes out part of South Carolina or Florida and there's a line, and it's going to be much easier for someone like me with an electric vehicle to MacGyver up some kind of solar panel setup and wire it up to charge my car with than it is for you to find gas in the event that the grid goes down. So spare me that bullshit too. Like, there's all these like hypothetical people that are like, you know, put that in your pipe and smoke it, or take it as a suppository, or take it orally, whatever you need. It's a valid point. You ain't finding gas if the grid goes down, son. I'm sorry. So anyway, point is, I didn't really feel the, you know, a celebratory vibe in the atmosphere this 4th of July. I wasn't going like, wow, man, I'm so proud of America right now. It's kind of a shithole country with zero self-awareness. And I honestly don't have anything personal to celebrate either. You know, maybe that's a doom and gloom thing. And now, again, it's, you know, I love I have a great family. I'm lucky to be alive. There are things to be grateful for. America is not something that deserves to be celebrated right now. Let's be honest. The mask is completely off. I mean, maybe I could celebrate America, the hope that America gets its shit together and stops being robbed by private industry in the name of communism or whatever, or acting like a fool. But that, you know, that's about the extent of what I would be able to celebrate. And, you know, it's compounded by me seeing things like this. Ever seen a fighter jet spin in a circle and go backwards? What am I? The U.S. military is badass. Okay, great, but ever seen a fighter jet spin in a circle and go backwards? What am I looking at? The reason the USA is in massive debt and 35,000 veterans are homeless. Woo. Happy 4th. You know, that's the kind of lack of self-awareness I'm speaking of, you know. Is that, yay, we have a plane that hovers. There's still a bunch of people sleeping in the streets and dying of drug overdoses. 35K homeless veterans, too. That's not a made-up statistic. That's a real number. 35,000 of the homeless population, which I think is around 750,000 people, around 750,000 at any given time. And that doesn't count the people who live in their cars and shit like that. That's just the raw number. But 35K of that is veterans, people who risk their lives to protect your freedom to shoot fireworks off and pretend everything's fine on the 4th of July every year. But what are we doing to take? I mean, at the very least, we could take care of those people. But the United States doesn't have a soul like that for some reason. Now, I say that in a judgmental tone, not because of the people, because the character of the people here is the opposite. But there's this massive disconnect between who we are and what we get when we vote that's gone on for so long. It can't sustain. And to be fair to the people of the United States, a lot of us, a lot of them, I say a lot of us because I'm one of them. A lot of us have been propagandized to the point where most people had no idea any of this was going on. It's like, yeah, America's awesome, we're great, And I say this again, not to. There's this really dumb kind of right-wing, childish view of the United States that like it can do no wrong, it's perfect in every way. That's stupid. Now, the other side of things is that it can do no right, and it's completely fraudulent because it's built on stolen land and all that shit. It's like every country's built on stolen land, okay? Like there comes a certain extent to which you have to just kind of cope with and work within the boundaries of what you're given at a given time. Now, that's not to say that you couldn't make big change if you put in the work. But again, I would rather work within the framework that exists currently and try to fix things through that rationale. And again, that doesn't mean electoral politics. I'm not telling you to go vote to change things, but I'm just saying this to illustrate the other extreme in the other direction, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. As you can see by our thumbnail, the degeneration of American politics. But let's talk about the evils of communism, shall we? Because we just talked about the evils of capitalism. It's communist and Zionist versus America. Now, this is an interesting post. I like Sam Tripoli a lot. I love Sam Tripoli, to be honest. But sometimes he throws out a take where I'm like, wait a minute. Think things through a little. He had something about MLK recently where he was like saying that MLK was a op or something. I'm like, dude, maybe he was, but also the idea that MLK was like with the Rothschilds or something is suspect. It's how they discredit things now. MLK was killed by the FBI. Okay, who do you think is more likely of working for the Rothschilds, the FBI or MLK? I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up. Malcolm X, was he? Again, but I do like the attitude of question everything. I'm getting sidetracked here. Sam tweeted this out, and the more I've seen, when you hear the chatter on social media, that the bot farms are at work, and you hear things being repetitively amplified like this. Suddenly, and we covered this last week, suddenly communism is a huge deal. Now, what triggered this? The wins of Zoran Mamdani approved candidates. Now, a lot of my friends on the extreme left, the dirtbag left, will say, they're still fucking Democrats, to which I say, yeah, you're right. But they're winning elections by saying the things that I've always wanted the left to say in elections. So, this is one of the things about the left that upsets me so much is it's like you can't even like be happy when you're winning the debate, like with Graham Plattner or Daraliza Chevalier or this woman who just won, we're going to talk about in Colorado. It's like, despite like leftist Bernie-esque kind of socialism, democratic socialist candidates finally starting to become mainstream in the Democratic Party, the people on the left who support that point of view are like, no, fuck you, fuck the Demo, which I get. Again, like the Democrats crushed our dreams, but these people, again, they're not AOC yet, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I think it's our job to ride them. You know what I mean? And just like the conservatives are doing with Trump right now, a lot of the MAGA people, when these democratic socialist people that get in through the Democratic Party to elected office, it's your job, lefties, to hold them accountable. Who cares if they're a Democrat? Would you like? I would vote for Thomas Massey, and he's not a Democrat. So, you have to look at these people on an individual basis. But I'm getting off track here. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so there's a very clear and organized propaganda campaign against communism right now. And it's largely because people who are much closer to being leftists, real light, are starting to win. And that's a threat to Chuck Schumer, AIPAC Shakur types who constitute the existing power structure. So you have the Democrat establishment calling everyone commies and anti-Semites. And also you have Donald Trump and his people doing the same thing. So they're shifting the blame to communism. That's the way I see this. And Trump and the Republican establishment attacking these people, just like the Democrat establishment, you have to understand that the communism, and this is for my right-wing, right-leaning friends, freedom-loving, MAGA people, what have you, because I love you too. I love you if you're Republican or Democrat. I don't fault you. But I will say this, you have to understand, MAGA people, that this communism, socialism scare tactic is because there's plenty of government socialism money going to companies like SpaceX and Palantir. And that kind of socialism and communism, when the state gives corporations money, is awesome and cool. But when the government gives money to poor people or food programs or socialism stuff that actually benefits the vast majority of taxpayers and not just some capitalist company, that's the bad kind of socialism, right? Do you see how this works, MAGA people? Because you have socialism whether you like it or not. That socialism is part of how an organized society operates. It's how we come together and devote resources to things that will elevate us it's the reason we're all here as a country today on the 250th anniversary. Anyway, so do not let these like scary buzzwords, MAGA people, influence your way of thinking in the same way that Democrats let words like white nationalism or, right-wing populism affect them in a negative way, when right-wing populism is pretty close to left-wing populism in a lot of ways, on kitchen table issues anyway, maybe not who can use what bathroom, but that's why we're fighting about who can use what bathroom, because the type of companies, Palantir and SpaceX, who get your money through government subsidies, aka socialism for corporations, can demonize the same practice to you and make you look like a rube and fight your neighbors over it. So get past that, okay? Get over your Cold War biases, and let's watch Trump's little speech here. Let's just listen to the intellect of the stunning intellectual mind at work in our president right here.
You can be loyal to Karl Marx, or you can be loyal to America. You can be a communist, or you can be a patriot. You cannot be both. As for those who peddle Marxist lies about our...
He's doing the you're either with us or you're with the terrorists thing. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. That's right. If you question anything we do, you're a bad person who's going to hell. And you probably love terrorism.
I like that song. Yay!
heritage. You tell our children that we live on stolen land or that our heroes were oppressors. They're doing something much worse than slandering our past.
Pause. This type of stuff right here leads me to believe that a lot of that type of rhetoric, the on stolen land, and the people that throw blood on paintings, like priceless paintings, to protest oil, that's an op. Those extreme leftists are an op by these people, so they can point at it and go, see, that's where it leads. That's where communism leads to. Just like we're going to get into in just a minute. Let me let Trump finish his little speech here, his cute little speech.
They are slandering and attacking our future. Not going to let that happen. They're trying to tear down the great American character, to destroy the people who declared independence, who crossed it.
If you believe this, you are like a little baby. Criticism of anything, this is constructive criticism. And I got into this last week as well, because conservatives' answer to criticism, honest criticism of your country, like I just gave earlier, means you need to leave. It's like you tell your kid's like, Daddy, why are you doing that? If you don't like it, get out of here. Get out on the streets right now. It's like, what kind of world do you live in where you just abandon the thing you dearly love because you have a problem with it? No, criticism is something you do when you care. But let's let our brilliant president continue.
To Delaware, who settled the West and conquered the skies. You know who those people are. But we will never let that happen. Our American ancestors did not shed their blood at Concord and Trenton, Gettysburg and Shiloh, Midway and Normandy, just so that a band of thieves, radicals, and lunatics could come in and loot, pillage our nation.
Our ancestors did not poison Native Americans with smallpox blankets and kill their tribes and break multiple contracts like we're doing with Iran, and just basically lie constantly and have zero honor whatsoever, so that these people could come in and criticize it and try to make life better for everyday Americans. How dare they? How dare these foreigners? Oh my God, it's just childish, but I'm gonna let him finish.
Our heroes died to win, build, and to save, and to build truly a great country, the greatest country ever in the world.
I like that song. Yay!
Hold on. You get the idea. I was going to do the I like that song, yay, again, but I think I hit it on time. Anyway, replace communists there with our greatest ally, and you can see why this rhetoric is kind of being spread around. It's a deflection. What I would call, from a technical standpoint, as a respected political analyst, respect right here, look into my sunglassed eyes, respected political analyst for you in the comments out there. Respected political analyst. This is why this is being spread around, because it's what I would call, and this is my respected political analyst language at work here, deflective. Wait, what was it again? Deflective language, deflective talking points, deflective propaganda, deflective media. It's basically to deflect people's attention from the things our greatest allies doing and refocus that attention on some, external enemy who's looking to subvert some other external enemy, really. So, it's the same way the Democrats do their Trump is scary, fascism, scary, bad, but can't tell you anything they've ever done for the voter. That's what the Republicans are doing now. But the boogeyman is communism instead of Trump and fascism. It's the same partisan cult, clown script. It's just being run by the red cult now against communism instead of white nationalism. And it's a sad and pathetic reality here in the United States political discourse that there's basically two clown sports team cults, a red team and a blue team, who just shout at each other while their politicians do the same agenda, no matter which one which team gets elected. That is American politics. So this is how deep this is getting. You know, this guy posted this thing I thought was funny. He says, happy 4th of July. And this is a meme now that's kind of going around where they take these Franklin books and they do this kind of like, oh, Franklin gets the commies. It's like, gets tired of commies. So first of all, I haven't heard any communist raging about 4th of July at all. I really haven't. Maybe I'm missing it. If you know of some, put them in the comments, link me. I'll check it out. But I haven't seen any commies freaking out about 4th of July. I would bet that commies like fireworks just as much as the next guy. See also China. But this Franklin thing, this meme here, it's a real big thing right now. And to me, what this illustrates is the point that I just made about the deflective language or the deflective commentary, deflective talking points that Trump is issuing. This is the reason that, you know, this Franklin meme, I think the reason this kind of rhetoric is taking off is because this is the actual reality. Franklin finally addresses the real problem in American politics. And you see the shirt that this guy's wearing. Now, this is a little bit more of an accurate description of what's really going on right now than the communism thing than this is. I would venture. But this image can be called racist. This is racism, apparently, under American, current American doctrine. This kind of, freedom of speech criticism right here is racism. But again, that's not racism. You can do that, but you can't do this. And I think that's the biggest thing with our greatest ally is that using racism as a shield for their antics, I think those days are over. Everyone sees through it now. The wolf has been cried one too many times. But one of the big reason that, these type of communist candidates, if you will, are winning elections in the Democratic Party. I don't think elections really matter, but maybe this is good on a symbolic level. As I said earlier, for leftists, like even when they're winning, they're not winning. They're like, oh, fuck that Democrat. It's like, dude, your views are finally taking over the Democratic Party to some degree. Obviously, cautious optimism. Like I said, hold them to account as the Tucker Carlsons and Candace Owens are doing with their MAGA politicians in the same way. But you're winning. Why are you upset with that, lefties? I want to keep going here because the candidates who are winning are people like this woman, who I have to admit I find very attractive. But if you listen to me talk, I'm obviously very overly horny on the timeline, so forgive my horniness. But I do think, all jokes aside, this is a very attractive woman, in my personal opinion. But this is the point I wanted to make. All my, bullshit aside. Hey, Republicans, this is what happens when you run on Make America Great Again, then turn around, bend over, and spread your cheeks for a foreign lobby. Money's on the table, baby. That's Republicans to AIPAC. And also, I think that one of the things that makes a woman like this sexy is that she has the courage of her convictions. But let's listen to her speak.
I'm about the same age that my dad was when he came to this country. Betting on the promise, he chose Denver to be our home because he knew that this city would welcome us. And that same city just voted to send a 29-year-old recovering lawyer, barista, immigrant, Democratic Socialist to Congress.
The Republicans are like,
I'm about the same age that my dad was.
oh my God. Listen, that's not very threatening sounding, but when you hear this woman's full story, she lost her job. She was kind of run out of her job for being critical of our greatest ally. So again, to me, this criticism isn't even about communism. It's about something else, because that's the thread that a lot of these candidates who won a couple weeks ago had, the common thread. Because even the guy who in New York, the guy who beat Dan Goldman, who's a Jewish Zionist with a ton of money, is also a Jewish Zionist. And Dan Goldman came out and cried racism against Jewish people because another Jewish Zionist beat him in his political race. That's how ridiculous this racism shit is getting. It's just getting to disastrous levels.
I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a lot of bad ones. I've gone to a lot of hurricanes, a lot of tornadoes. I've never seen anything like this. This is a bad one.
But then it gets dark. And this is where you have a problem. The problem is this. I think it should be made legal to hunt communists for sport. This is not funny, haha. And if you said this about our greatest ally, if you said, I think it should be legal to hunt blank for sport, you would be deplatformed entirely for violent racist threats. But it's okay to do this with communism. Just call someone a commie and you can threaten murder, you can threaten whatever you want on them. Look at this girl. This girl is so pretty. There's just something undeniably attractive about this woman to me. Say whatever you want, call me whatever you need to, but I'm calming a lot. Anyway, I'm not arguing that this guy should be deplatformed or like have his Twitter account frozen or whatever. I think that's up for debate, but I would say if anything happens or if anyone makes moves on her or something like that, this is suspicious, you know. And this guy's putting himself at risk by making violent threats against a elected official now. And so I had to respond with a tweet of my own that no one's ever going to see. But I think this kind of sums up the level of intellect it takes to formulate and tweet out a take like this. And what I said is, you retards always have to go right to violence since you can't win an actual debate with facts. So there it is. Violence is for the stupid. And you'll notice the dumbest people, it's always right where they go. Oh, they should hunt the communists. Hunt the commies. Imagine if liberals were out here like, we need to hunt white nationalists and put them down. Like, I'm saying that satirically, YouTube. But again, that kind of language is very clearly incitement. You're very clearly telling people that, you know, I mean, it's a hypothetical incitement, but it's like, should be. This is what we should be doing, good Americans. If you have any, you know, commitment to freedom, you will hunt these people. Like, what? How is that okay? So this is the level of debate that we're at, you know, subtly threatening violence against a woman because you're scared of communism. Real manly shit right there, eh? Real tough guy. You're a very stupid person, whoever you are, and I hope for your sake you don't ever commit an act of violence and end up in prison, because you seem like the level of grade of intellect who is possible of doing that. Unfortunately, stupid propaganda is a two-way street, and this is what they are using on the left. On the flip side, it's the return of Patriot Front. Liberals are like,
I
liberals are
like that song. Yay!
I almost played my Jim Morrison.
All join now and lament for the death of my cock.
So this account on its own is suspect, but look at this crap. Like who in 2026 looks at this without any skepticism whatsoever? This guy's like, in a civilized democracy, thousands of citizens. He has a Canadian flag in his bio and a Ukraine flag in his bio. So that right there, something. He's probably not even American. In a civilized democracy, thousands of citizens would emerge from their homes and kick the shit out of these Nazi incels. We are far too tolerant. So, again, a better question here is, why haven't reporters identified these people and interviewed one of them? You know, maybe found out, what do they stand for? What do they actually want? Why do they show up every couple months and anonymously demonstrate without making any demands or anyone asking them any questions? Where are the intrepid journalists who investigate this and find out the names of these people who organize these demonstrations that somehow kind of just happen and go off without any kind of hitch on a regular basis, and we just see footage of them circulated around like, look at what white power, oh my god. So now some pundits on the right are starting to ask questions about this. Imagine that. Hey, they're smearing you with some fake government op. Like, what does this even mean?
Here we are with the Patriot Front in front of the Washington Monument. Hey, are any guys speaking up on the record here? What do you guys think of Kash Patel for FBI director? Anybody?
Well, there's your intrepid reporter.
What do you guys think of Kash Patel for FBI director? Anyone? Kash Patel? Any thoughts?
Zero responses.
Any guys
Are there girls here too?
able to speak through those face diapers?
A lot of feds right there. Those guys must be getting paid well to do that. Anyway, Laura Ingraham, God bless her, I call fake, looks more like Antifa in costume. No one should be allowed to cover their faces. So she says looks more like Antifa in costume, as if Antifa aren't in costume. Let's call in our boy. And I say that, friend of the show. I say that with the utmost sarcasm. Friend of the show, David From here, to tell you about Antifa. David, take it away.
On Tuesday.
My good friend.
And if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Most of whom are probably who, David?
And committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
There you go. That's who Antifa is. And you can trust David From, because guess what? He's a bipartisan neocon hack. He wrote speeches for George W. Bush. He's also Canadian, ironically. And now he's a liberal. Now he's against Trump, ironically. But there you go, Laura Ingraham. I'm sure you're out there watching. Curious mind, curious intellect, the incredible intellect of Laura Loomer and Laura Ingraham. They go almost as deep as Douglas Murray.
You're an anti-Semite.
So there you have it. David From pretty much says the quiet part out loud and lets you know that Antifa are in fact undercover cops, which let's bring in our boy Mr. Sausage here, because when you want legitimate political takes, you go to Mr. Sausage. Okay? That's where you go. Mr. Sausage has the goods. So Mr. Sausage says, is Patriot Front a Fed op? Which I believe, if Patriot Front. Okay, let me start over here. I just Dr. Seuss myself. If Patriot Front is a Fed op, which I believe it is, ask yourselves why it's still fully operational when Trump controls the White House, FBI, and CIA. Well, I don't know, Mr. Sausage, but it does look like their funding has been cut. If you watch this footage we're about to show you right here. Clearly, the Patriot Front lost all their USAID, SPLC, U-Haul funding. What self-respecting right-wing extremist group takes public transportation to a hate rally? Okay, so this is their U-Haul, but I didn't pull the picture, but you have to see there was this photo that went viral of these guys on the bus. So let me pull that up real quick. I should have included that in today's presentation to provide context. For some reason, I thought that video had the bus footage in it, but it does not. So here you go. Just for the sake of continuity and context here is this image is from today. A black woman sits on the DC Metro as masked white nationalists, there it is, prepare to march on our nation's capital. This is America's 250th anniversary. Look at these clowns. I said, this lady was like, oh, great. Why do I got to be on the bus with all these cops? So the point of retreading, you know, the whole thing with Antifa and showing you the footage of David Frum telling you out loud that Antifa are in fact undercover cops, and then showing you Laura Ingraham comparing Patriot Front to Antifa. Is there any doubt in your mind that this is paid fucking government nonsense? That this is millions of dollars were earmarked for, you know, public awareness or public relations on awareness of white nationalism or some bullshit that they can funnel a bunch of money into, some half-wit psyop bullshit. The money that these guys rely on was probably also approved under Biden, and they're just kind of finishing out their fiscal, you know, year. They got to use the rest of that money to get, you know, get people whipped up about white nationalism, because, you know, if there's any real threat to America, it's white nationalism.
You go back to your home on Whore Island.
All right, well, let's keep moving. We have a lot to talk about today, and this is only our second story. So, second full story. We could probably break that up into multiple segments here, but how long we've been going? We've already been going for an hour. So, apparently I talk too much. But let's keep talking. I'm going to keep talking, and we're going to talk about White House Press Secretary Karoline. Did I say Karen? Karoline Leavitt. Now, I just want you to take that in for a moment, as I want you to notice something about this. Okay. I did a Google image search for Karoline Leavitt, and this was one of the photos in like the top 10 results. Now, haters will say it's AI, and I think she looks great. She's in great shape, and I don't want to start any rumors or anything, but if you take a close look at this photo, it looks like Karoline here might be packing some heat, if you know what I mean. Take a look at the bulge in that spandex over here. That's quite the little bulge that homegirl is rocking. So that's a little suspicious. She might be giving Michelle Obama a run for her money. But keeping with our communist scare tactics today, we're going to talk about a recent interview that Karoline did where she called out the left and the communist kind of haters, and as Mitt Romney called them, the do-nothings, or what was it? What's the the freeloading class. You know, the people who work for a living. Anyway, she is the White House press secretary, aka chief propagandist. And so, you know, she's just, let's give her a little bit of credit. She's just doing her job here. Let's watch as everyone's favorite press secretary, Karoline, gets on the mic and drops some bars. Karoline, give it to him.
To come here right now.
Some of these kids, and I call them kids because they're in their 20s, and they've never had real jobs, and they're complaining things are expensive. Okay. Yes.
This is what I love about this. I love this whole, like, we're the adults. We're the big guy. We're the big boys. I'm a big boy, and I'm talking down to these kids who think that you can just get your tax money spent on things that you like. Like, what world do you live in, silly kids?
Things are expensive when you don't have a real job.
Right.
Do you think that's getting traction? Complaining.
And you not having a real job definitely has nothing to do with us. That's your own fault. It has nothing to do with the structure of society and the government as you know it today. Come on, Karoline. I should have said drop it, Jesse, because it was really Jesse who kind of Mr. MC Waters here.
Unfortunately, I do, because this generation, my generation, I hate to say it, Gen Z and those younger than me have been raised with just silver spoons in their mouths, just getting everything handed to them. That's not the values this country was built on. It was built on meritocracy and hard work, pulling up your sleeves, pulling yourself up from your bootstraps, and achieving the American dream. And we need to protect it with all we got.
Is it laziness?
A little bit.
Is it because the professor said?
No, I just want to sidebar here. Is it laziness? Now listen. Before you hate on Karoline here, she achieved her American dream by working hard enough to get a body like that and have a very wealthy older gentleman marry her and start a family with her. So let's give Karoline a little bit of credit here. She's living her American dream.
Country's corrupt, it's evil, and we just need to shake them down and hand money out.
It's laziness and it's the liberal indoctrination. You bring up a great point about our education system. However, I will say a silver lining, so many parents that I talk to across the country are homeschooling, are turning to private education, are turning towards Christian schools across the country because they don't want their children being taught these communist and liberal ideas slammed down their throat. That's why President Trump in the White House has advocated so strongly for school choice across the country. We want kids to be taught to love our country. They should. It is the greatest country in the history of the world.
All right. I say, if they misbehave, just make all these young kids join the army, right? Shape them up. I almost had to.
Yeah, we'll send them to Iran to die for our greatest ally. Way to go, Jesse. Very, very, very open-minded of you. So as you can see here, they're scared because the left is winning and the propaganda is in full effect now. And watching this, I had to remember too who their audience is. Who is Fox News's core audience? It's the elderly. It's old people. So they're scaring grandma and grandpa about the young ones. Those dumb young kids, they just love the socialism. They don't know any better. They think you can just have the government. They think you can just elect government that spends your money on things you want. Silly kids. They don't know you have to give all your money to pigs at a war trough so that they can bomb brown people in other countries and steal their natural resources. What world do these foolish children live in?
Why don't you go back to your home on Whore Island?
Anyway, to be fair to Karoline here, she claims that she was taken out of context with this clip. So let's read what Karoline says in her defense here. She's seeing a lot of bad faith actors take my comment. I'm seeing a lot of bad faith actors take my comments from this interview out of context. So here's the full interview and let me expound. This interview was about the rise of communism on the left. And I was asked by Jesse Waters why so many young people are buying the false promise of free stuff being sold by communist politicians. Now, let me stop right there because I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to say this a lot in the coming days. Free stuff is when my tax money gets spent on things that benefit me. That's free stuff. Anyway, let's finish blonde lady's tirade here. My answer, a combination of laziness, yes, and the liberal indoctrination that has been taking place in our education system for far too long. So again, this is political terrorism. There's no the liberal indoctrination. Like what's the liberal, liking gay people and actually looking at your country with a critical eye and remembering the horrible things that have it's done along with the good things. That's the thing about this is, again, I go back to this kind of extreme on either side and Trump mentioned it in his stupid little speech about like, oh, they want to fucking, the left wants to stolen land, everything about stolen land. It's like, look, you could make an argument that, yes, I mean, the history of California is insane. Like people moved and just took Mexican dudes' land into California to steal, to gold rush and shit. So there's definitely an argument to be made that a lot of the United States is stolen land. Yes. Okay. However, the idea of like, okay, what are you going to do? Give it back to who? Come on. You have to deal pragmatically in the reality we live in. And okay, fine. I mean, Native Americans have casino money. I worked with a lot of, anyway, I'm getting off the rails here. The point again is that the stolen land thing is every bit as stupid as this free stuff argument. It's the extreme dumbed downedness of each side. So anyway, my answer, a combination of laziness, yes, and the liberal indoctrination that has taken place in the education system. There are far left educators pumping students' heads with garbage. That never happens on the right, does it? Convincing them the hard work and sacrifice won't pay off down the road because they want them totally reliant on the government instead. Now, I would like to see specific examples of this because this, again, is a talking point that they hammer on. I don't know anyone who takes pleasure in being a leech. Most 99.9% of people just want to like be able to work a reasonable amount of time and pay their bills and live comfortably. That's the reality. Not that if there's all these takers, no one makes money like Mitt Romney by hollowing out businesses and like what a great thing those people do for society. Unlike the takers who work for a living and can barely afford to live. That's that's what this rhetoric kind of drips with, that Mitt Romney out of touchedness, Mitt Romney disconnectedness, I guess is a good. I went on to say that's why President Trump is a huge advocate for school choice and why so many parents I know are turning to homeschooling. Good parenting matters more than anything. Agree. But a solid civics-based education is also vitally important. Agree. She's right about that. I care enough about our country to tell uncomfortable truths, and it's an undeniable fact that a growing number of young people in our country are falling for the lies of socialism and communism sold to them by anti-American politicians who've never built anything, offer no real solutions, and are intent on tearing down everything that makes this country great. Now, this is a simpleton worldview. Again, this is what I would call simpleton worldview. Very simpleton. Well, if you say anything bad about America, that means you hate it. This is the kind of worldview I would expect from a 14-year-old girl, a teenage girl. You said that my eyelashes look funny, which means you hate me and you want me to die. Oh my God. It's like this is the mentality that I would expect from a Karoline Leavitt. Well, I tell uncomfortable truths, and anyone who criticizes America is a communist who is intent on destroying everything that makes America great. Oh, shut up. At the same time, it's also true that many Gen Z Americans are hardworking, entrepreneurial, and deeply patriotic. There you go. And it's vital we protect the American dream for them. She's probably gotten good at that with her husband there. That's why I'm honored to work for President Trump and speak on behalf of an administration that is implementing right-wing policies to do this, lower taxes. Again, all the stuff that they've been doing for decades that has resulted in the complete shit show that is the United States economy today. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. is insanity. And as I showed you last week, you don't even have to do that much. Look at Seattle. Anyway, as the president has correctly warned, communism is the enemy of free people everywhere. Blah, blah, blah. It's the enemy of July 4th. So I'll continue to go out. The radical Democrats, socialists, and communists. Blah, 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 blah. You're a commie. I sound just like the liberals who call everyone a white nationalist Nazi. There it is again. The cult member mentality. But it's good to get some clarity there. Karoline was just trying to run some propaganda. Just trying to run some propaganda against communism on behalf of the president, which is her job, to be fair, by smearing Gen Z. And that definitely doesn't include Gen Z that actually have jobs. Good job, Karoline. It's great how much they sound like Democrats scaremongering over Trump. You know, it's like they really don't get it. They really don't, as we're going to see as we continue forward here today. They do not understand what they are doing. They know not what they do, my son.
Oh, you disgust me. Okay.
All right, well, let's keep moving. We are going to now talk about everyone's favorite politician, Hillary Clinton. You know, there are very few politicians that unite the public in the same way that a politician like Hillary Clinton does. I think Hillary Clinton, it turned Asian all of a sudden. Sorry, Asian friends. That was very racist. Hillary Clinton is beloved. Hillary Clinton is universally hated by people on the left and the right alike. And I'm sorry to say that.
Don't tase me, bro. Don't tase me. I didn't do.
Anyway, American elections really do look a lot like this. I think Alan McLeod tweeted this out, and there's really no better representation of what American elections look like. You know, a lot of Democrats will look you straight in the face, given the state of things right now, and say, if we had only voted for Democrats, none of this would be happening. You terrible, terrible Trump supporters. You ruined America. You know, the 14-year-old girl emotional mentality that conservatives have as well. And I feel bad for those people because all of the same things would be happening tenfold if the Democrats were in charge. And we watched it happening under Biden and Harris. And so I think a lot of people, and I've said this multiple times, have took a chance. I don't think that they just believed Trump was going to do everything he said. They took a chance on Trump and him doing everything that Harris would have done. And that's why his base is upset, because he obviously said he wasn't going to do the stuff that he's doing, and he's doing it anyway. But that's why you have Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and kind of the mainstream thought leaders in the party about to form a new party. Well, you have people like Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham, who hated Trump until he became the status quo, now slobbing him every day. You know, now Ted Cruz is out here screaming anti-Semitism and I love Trump as he greases up his beehole for a certain lobby. You know which lobby I'm talking about. I should have brought the photo that I have of Ted Cruz in the Greatest Allied bikini. But the reality of American politics is Alan's take here. This is American elections, and the American people lose no matter which party wins. And here's hard proof of that. Hillary Clinton recently wrote an op-ed in support of Donald Trump's Iran war policy. So here you go, Democrats. Oh, moral high ground havers. Now, a lot will argue that she's just being pragmatic here, but people with brains will see more clear evidence that the two-party system the U.S. runs on is a complete fraud, puppet show, designed to keep us fighting with each other, as our government continues to operate unchecked, not as a vessel of the people who elected it, but as something else entirely, which I won't get into at the moment. but let's look at some of this. This is a tweet of Parsi. If you were surprised that Hillary Clinton penned an op-ed in Financial Times declaring her support for Trump's Gaza plan, that de facto allows Israel to annex most of the territory, then you haven't been paying attention for the past 25 years. Now, a lot would say this might be the reason Hillary Clinton didn't win, because Americans and we all know that Americans don't know any of this stuff. They just hate women, right? Like, they're just racists and misogynists. Americans didn't know that Hillary Clinton wanted to do this. They just hate women, so they would not vote for her because she's a girl. That's right. Americans just hate vagina-having individuals. That's why trans people or trans women are so big, because they don't have vaginas. And Hillary Clinton had a vagina, and that is why America hated her. Let's just keep that in mind as we move forward today, and just remember the victim status that Hillary Clinton holds and the horrible station she was given in her life. A moment of silence for Hillary Clinton. I'm kidding, of course, but this is the little poll quote in here says, strip away the rhetoric, and it offers something that not long ago many believed was unattainable. That's Hillary Clinton talking about Trump's Gaza plan. So again, it don't matter what you vote for, you ain't getting it, what you want ever, America. And that should make you mad, but most people are just fat and happy and don't really care. But here is one of my favorite people online, Nick Cruz, explaining it to you. House Rules Committee kills Ro Khanna in Thomas Massey's attempt to prevent the merging of the United States military with our greatest ally. This is high treason. Zionist occupied America has now been legislated into reality.
Top secret, and even co-producing weapons. The House Rules Committee struck down Ro Khanna's and Thomas Massey's attempt to stop the merging of the United States military with the IDF, even preventing any debate on the issue. A NDAA resolution.
So remind me again, who controls the House? Last time I checked, wasn't it the Democrats? Anyway. Don't matter who you vote for in the two-party system. That's right, it don't matter who you vote for in the two-party system.
That's beautiful, man.
Thank you very much. I will be here all week. Let's talk about something very serious. We have this is a very serious piece here, folks. This is Elon Musk with the Chinese foreign minister during Trump's recent trip to China, where he took the American business class to interact with the Chinese government. And lately, a lot of people forget this, but Elon Musk was part of the Trump administration when it first came in. Remember Doge? Yeah. Well, you're about to remember it, because lately I have seen a lot of liberals talking about Elon Musk's death toll. So people are making seriously making an argument that the cuts that Elon's Doge made in the early days of the Trump administration killed millions of people. Okay. And you should just accept that as fact and hate Elon and consider him to be a Hitler. But there's a very interesting paradox here. And you're about to learn what that paradox is. So, Elon defunded USAID, which means that he killed millions. Let's just start with that premise, whether you believe it or not. That's the premise. Elon Musk killed millions through defunding USAID. Now, the media backlash accusing him of being a mass murderer due to funding these cuts shows me a couple of things. The first one is that the USAID still has ability to run mass media propaganda somehow to, in defense of itself. And the second is that these death counts are complete bullshit. So let's start here. This is a Nazi eagle at the White House, 88-foot flagpoles, Nazi salutes, Third Reich slogans such as one homeland, one people, one heritage, and one of ours, all of yours. That sounds a little bit socialist and communist, doesn't it? One of ours, all of yours. These are parallels or coincidences. They're turning America into Nazi Germany 2.0 and rubbing our faces in it. So here you have, again, this example of half-wit rhetoric from left-leaning people. And this guy has a Ukraine flag in his profile. So right off that's just like a I'm stupid tag when they have that, unless they're actually Ukrainian, in which case maybe you could give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt that they're just patriotic. But this is the level, like this is every bit as stupid as the communism stuff we were just talking about coming from the right. Communism, and look at the parallels between fascism. Maybe this guy's an op. Maybe this guy is much like I said about a lot of the extreme leftists, it's a controlled opposition thing to make the left look like it's all a bunch of blue-haired people screaming about stolen land, when it's much more than that. Yeah, sure, there are those people, but it's like with the right, it's like, sure, there are definitely some right fascist people who are Hitler supporters, who are, very far right authoritarian leaning. That's where you'll find them. You definitely won't find those people in the Democratic Party trying to give rights to gay people and black people. You're going to find authoritarian Nazis on the right. But that doesn't mean the entire right is authoritarian Nazis. Just like, again, the entire left isn't blue-haired, stolen land people. So with all these people claiming Elon has such a crazy death count, these types of people, I had to wonder, what is the source of this? What's the evidence? So here is a sample for you here. How much money did Elon get in contracts from depraved Donald and his regime? How many votes did he get for Donald? As of January 2026, and this is the claim, 757,314 people, the majority children, have died from the USAID funding cuts. 88 deaths every hour. Okay. That's a pretty bold claim. That's a lot of lives. So that's a pretty big claim. Like, what's the evidence to back this claim up? Because if you're going to claim someone's committing Holocaust level murders, or they're responsible for the deaths of like almost 1 million children, that's more than 750,000 children supposedly that your boy Elon here is responsible for the deaths of. Well, I clicked through, and this is from Health Policy Watch, and this is from their death tracker. Seems like a very legit, reliable source, by the way. But let's see what their methodology is, because that's what I'm concerned with here. I want to know, how are these people getting to this number? Do they have a list of deceased people? Did they uncover mass graves in these countries? Well, it turns out that to date, and let me just really zero in on the important part of this here. 757,314 people, the majority children, have died from funding cuts, according to Impact Counter, which tracks the effect of USAID cuts. Now get this, via sophisticated modeling tools. So they're not even, it's modeling. There's no data whatsoever behind this. It's sophisticated modeling tools. Modeling the effect of the 90-day pause? Modeling the effect of the 90-day pause on HIV in sub-Saharan Africa, Impact Counter eliminates that 159,000 adults may have died in that region alone as a result of the suspension of aid by USAID and PEPFAR. There are also almost 1 million more malaria cases, over 700,000 affecting children due to aid cuts. Okay. What's the source of that? There's no source notice. What was also untrue was Musk's claim that Doge had saved the U.S. government $1 trillion by last October. Of Doge's public list of canceled contracts and grants, the 13 biggest were all incorrect, according to New York Times. The top 2 were Defense Department contracts worth $7.9 billion that have not been terminated. Now, the thing that's interesting about this stuff is they never can quantify where they're getting these numbers from, ever. They're never going to pull out a list and go like, oh, here's pictures of the graves. It's sophisticated modeling software. And, when you talk about, so they say the effect of a 90-day pause, Impact Counter estimated that a bunch of adults died in that region alone as a result of the suspension of. One of the things I would love is if Doge had gone into the weeds with this money. For example, they say the activity that USAID was doing, the money that was going to this, I would like them to trace how that money was spent. Better than just cutting it would be to go, okay, like what was USAID actually, how was this money being spent? What percentage of it was actually spent on vaccinating people against, can you vaccinate against HIV? I don't think so. What were they doing? It's handing out condoms, $159,000 for condoms. That seems a little steep. So there's just all this hyperbole at play in the political debate, and you have to be able to look through it past the cult rhetoric on either side. And this is what I said when I saw, this stuff, this is the House Republicans talking about communism. 100 million dead. That's the verdict on Marxism. History already ran this experiment. Never again. Okay. So 100 million dead killed by Marxism. Based on what? What are the metrics here that you guys are using to claim that Marxism has killed, 100 million? Because based on the numbers of dead from U.S. wars alone, it's around 20 million, I think. And that's just including the civilians and the soldiers that were actually counted over the last, 50 years of U.S. tomfoolery, let's say, on the world stage. But I really wanted to dig into this. So, I jumped in and I said, Google AI, this is with Google AI. How many people have been killed by communism? And what is the source of these numbers? Okay. And you're going to be surprised. Estimates of deaths under communist regimes in the 20th century range from roughly 20 to 60 million. Again, the U.S. definitely killed at least 20 million with all of our wars. So we're already even with communism based on that alone. From roughly 20 to 60 million, narrower definitions focus on direct killings, to 94 to 148 million. Broader definitions include policy-induced famines and excess mortality. My guess would be, if you ask these people where they got these numbers, they would say, we use sophisticated modeling software to come up with these numbers. Just like the people who are accusing Elon of killing a bunch of people through defunding USAID were using. Okay, so neither of you have the moral high ground. And I'm really trying not to say the F word and clean up my language. And I hope you're noticing. Way less F words out of me. I'm trying to be much more clean. And it's not even because I don't like swearing. It's just because I feel like it makes me sound less intelligent to cuss a lot. So I'm trying to cuss less because I'm doing a show here. Gotta keep it safe for the kids. Kids need to watch this. I'm kidding, of course. Key sources and estimates. The Black Book of Communism, 1997, edited by Stephanie Courtois, with contributions from historians like Nicholas Wirth on the USSR, Jean-Louis Margolin on Asia. The the most commonly reflected single volume source for the high total. Total approximately 94 million. Courtois introduction, some around 100 million, site 85. Breakdown, approximate per the introduction. China, 65 million. Okay. I would like to see the rationale behind that number, but also remember that China has a very large population and a much longer history than a lot of these other countries do. How long has China been around? I'm gonna look that up right now, just to answer just so I don't sound too uninformed about this. How long has China existed? 3,500 years. Okay. So you would have a 65 million death toll. You could drum up some kind of, if your country had existed for 3,500 years. The USA just hit 250 to give you some fucking perspective. Sorry, I was trying not to say that word. To give you some perspective. The USA just hit 250 years. China has existed for 3,500 years. Let me say that again. 3,500 years. The Soviet Union, in its tiny existence, killed as many people as American wars did over the last, 20 years. And there's a pretty big drop off after those two countries because the rest of these countries have tiny populations and haven't existed that long. Breaking down the numbers here. So let's keep going. Some contributors publicly criticize Courtois for allegedly inflating totals. There you go. So this is contributors to this book that everyone references for the communism death numbers. Contributors to the book criticize the writer for inflating the numbers. People who contributed to the book. Let me say that again. Historians who contributed to this book that everyone cites as a source for communism killing zillions of people, contributors, let me read this again, publicly criticized Courtois for allegedly inflating totals to reach that 100 million number, manipulating numbers and drawing overly direct comparisons to Nazism. Critics argue it includes debatable famine deaths and mixes intentional killings with policy failures. There you go.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
R.J. Rummel provides some of the highest figures: 110 million death by government. USSR alone, 61.9 million. China very high, driven by famine and repression. Rummel defined democide broadly as government-caused deaths of unarmed people, including neglect, leading to famine and forced labor. What about neglect that leads to, deaths in natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina, for example? Does that count? Some historians criticize his work for relying on lower quality sources and potentially overestimating in certain cases other scholarly estimates. So you get the idea. The entire fabrication that communism killed 100 million people is debatable at best. People who contributed to the book criticized the author for inflating the numbers. So, what more do you need than that? So this is a tweet from one of the dumbest people, again, just to kind of show you where the political debate is at in the United States today. And he says, after spending a decade calling everyone you disagreed with a fascist, you'll forgive me if I don't lose sleep over calling you a communist. You taught a generation that political opponents should be branded with history's darkest labels. Don't act shocked when those labels find their way back to you in spades. Free speech isn't free as a cost, and the bill has come due. Again, these are the same people who are saying we need to hunt communists. They're equally as deranged. And here's Elon Elon got very mad when Nicholas Kristof accused him of killing all these people through USAID cuts. And I just want to show you some of this because this is just funny to look at. Elon challenged anyone to name someone who was killed by his Doge cuts to USAID. Nicholas Kristof, who did the study, accepted the challenge. Instead of explaining why Kristof was incorrect, he responded with personal abuse. He's clearly rattled. No, I don't think we are responsible for all poor nations, but we were saving one life every 10 seconds with the USAID, and we cut that off abruptly with no time for countries to adjust, so kids died unnecessarily. And I do think that's bad when kids die unnecessarily, don't you? Elon says, you're an utter piece of shit and a liar. Nothing that Kristof has said is true. He's an utter piece of shit and a liar. What a complete load of bullshit. I only had to read the first one to know how Elon Musk cut all the diesel to the entire town, and so the woman had to be carried. The entire town has no motorized vehicles because Elon Musk cut the diesel. Kristof is lying through his teeth. So, okay, listen. You could have said fight, but you decided to let them die, so you raised her. Forget the politics. You're actually evil. So again, this is all debatable rhetoric. Let's say that Nicholas Kristof is right and he can point to all these people that, you know, died because USAID money didn't get there. Okay, I could probably point to all the people that died because they don't have any USAID money at all, period. Is that our problem? Is that Elon's responsibility? Is the USA guilty of killing zillions of people because it didn't give them USAID money? This doesn't make any sense. This rhetoric is just disgustingly stupid. And I think Elon's right to be upset about it, but also he handles it like a child. Instead of being intellectually consistent, I think he's drawn into the team sport of it because of this kind of shit. He's just like, oh, fuck the liberals. They're the devil. Where it's like, no, you guys use the same tactics. You all use the same fourth grade childish cult nonsense to defame each other as commies and Nazis. And you don't even see it. This is the point of me going through all this shit. And again, it's this guy who pretends that he has some sort of moral high ground when there's people on his side that are going like, we need to hunt commies versus, you know, oh, you're a Nazi fascist and we need to go out and punch, you know, what is it? Patriot Front in the mouth. I would love to see someone attempt that. I would not doubt it if the feds came down on you super hard if you attempted to punch Patriot Front in the mouth. It's funny because one of those stupid cars just went by my window and I'm just like, oh my God, the dumbest people alive. Rom, 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 listen to my cars. God. You're just like the liberals. These people are no different than liberals. They're the same level of, you know, unhinged, stupid, whatever you want to, you know, however you want to call it. And this was my response to this guy that made a lot of people angry. But I said, after spending a decade calling everyone you disagreed with a fascist, you'll forgive me if I act as retarded as you did and call everyone a communist, which is what this guy's essentially saying. So that's where it ended. And I wanted to kind of go through the responses to that tweet as to laugh at them, but we don't have a ton of time, so we need to keep barreling through these stories today. Let's talk about the New York Times. Let's discuss the New York Times. The old gray lady, as some would call it. The old gray lady. I think they call it that. You know, I was thinking about that too. It's like, why do they call it the old gray lady? So that like if you attack it, you're guilty of elder abuse. If you call it out for being wrong, you're like a disrespectful piece of shit. For you attack the old gray lady. That's the old gray lady. How dare you? How dare you attack an old lady? What's the matter with you? I can't believe you would just attack an old lady like that.
No one in high school knew what the word anti-Semitic was until Ye made it popular.
All right, well, The New York Times, which is part of, some would say the mainstream media. The mainstream media
cares what an irrelevant, lamestream media is going to say about you.
Thank you, Sarah Palin, friend of the show, Sarah Palin. The lamestream media, as friend of the show, Sarah Palin would call it, has lost all credibility. That was pretty much proven during the last couple election cycles, especially the 2024 cycle, though. That was the final nail, really. And so that's why it's funny to watch organizations like the New York Times pretend that they still wield any real influence outside of the DC Beltway echo chamber. Because they don't. Okay, maybe a little bit. They do have a little bit based solely on, legacy, being able to stay around as long as they have. But, it's not owned by the same people. It's not managed under the same ethics. It's just the brand has continued. It's interesting how journalism can do that. It's like the Washington Post. The Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos. You think the Washington Post is ever going to write an article that criticizes Amazon labor practices, maybe? They probably have as like a showpiece. I would be interested to see. But so I want to start this by just showing you here what the New York Times has been up to, because they're just kind of living up to who they are as an organization. This is the cover of New York Times Magazine, and I want to is there a date on this? What's the date on this? You see that right there? What's that date say? I can't get it. I can't do it. I'm going back to 100%. Oh, there we go. That looks like it says June 26th of 2026. So Seth here says, let's set this up here with Seth, with our boy Seth. He says, very persuasive. I'm almost convinced. Just one quick question for the NYT team. How come you forgot to mention that Jeffrey Epstein was the first MCC inmate in more than 20 years to succeed in committing suicide and only the second in 40 years? Interesting. Did you read the article, Seth? Maybe it's in there to give them credit. This response says, Dr. Sampson ruled it a suicide, retired, took a cushy role at Mount Sinai, where Epstein was a VIP, despite the ME who actually performed the autopsy, Kristen Roman refusing to sign off. Michael Baden ruled clear homicide by strangulation, citing ligature marks and hyroid fracture. So there you have it. The New York Times doing their best to cover for the Epstein class here. On August 10th, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein died in this building. This is the untold story of what happened. And you have a great example here of them just kind of doing propaganda to protect the reputation of who? Some would argue our greatest ally. Some would argue the Epstein class as a whole. Some would argue political power, American political power, which is tied to, ironically, our greatest ally. But the New York Times is liar. It's composed of liars, and they've pushed every fake narrative that brought us into disastrous wars. And a lot of other medias push that propaganda too, but they have a long track record of being the credible propaganda. Again, the old gray lady, you wouldn't hit an old gray lady, would you? How dare you? So just to refresh your memory, quick trip down good old memory lane here with my dream harp. This This is a throwback to the New York Times caliphate story. New York Times retracted the core of its hit 2018 podcast, Caliphate, a Muslim terrorist propaganda podcast, by the way, to scare people about Muslims. After discovering that the harrowing stories of its central subject, a Canadian man who claimed to be an ISIS executioner, were fabricated, following an internal review, the paper admitted to several editorial failures in verifying the claims. Initially, the 12-part audio documentary hosted by reporter Rukmini Kaliamachi gained widespread acclaim for its gripping look inside the Islamic State. The narrative heavily relied on the testimony of Shiroz Chaudhry, who went by Abu Huzaifa. He gave vivid details of committing gruesome atrocities for ISIS in Syria. However, the story unraveled in late 2020 after the Royal Canadian Mounted Police arrested Chaudhry for his fake terrorist activities. An official Times review found that the paper ignored major red flags, failed to assign an experienced terrorism editor to the project, and lacked corroboration for its claims. Because the central narrative collapsed, the Times appended a damning editor's note to the series, reassigned the reporter from the terrorism beat, just got reassigned, not fired, for making a complete fraud, returned the show's Peabody Award, and had the project's Pulitzer Prize finalist designation rescinded. So I didn't even catch the part about how they didn't even fire the reporter that did this. They just reassigned him. That tells you a lot about the credibility of the New York Times. But let's keep going. Let you read this, read along. So I said, provide details on how the hoax was uncovered. The Caliphate podcast hoax was exposed when a Canadian law enforcement investigation and a New York Times internal review revealed that source Shiroz Chaudhry fabricated his ISIS involvement, including using stolen photos and lying about traveling to Syria. Contradictory statements between media interviewers and an inability to provide concrete evidence led to the RCMP charging Chaudhry with terror hoax and invalidating the podcast's central narrative. For more details, For more details, read what the New York Times has to say about their stunning hoax of a podcast. And it makes you, remember a couple things. First of all, who is the New York Times lying on behalf of? Well, I think we know, especially in a story like that, because what's the repercussion of smearing Muslims in the United States? What's the repercussion for that? Everyone thinks Muslims are terrorists or believes that Muslims are terrorists. So they're like, oh, whatever, that was a lie, but Muslims are still terrorists. So the guy got reassigned. It's like the priest who molests kids, right? It's like, oh yeah, that was pretty bad what you did to that kid, but why don't you go work at this other church over here? So, anyway, Muslim terrorist podcast, very successful, won awards. The entire thing was found to be a fraud because their source was arrested by Canadian authorities. You would think that journalists at the NYT would have done some fact checking before publishing something like that, before running an anti-Muslim piece like that. But then you remember who they are, who they work for, what their history is, and there you have it. We salute you, New York Times. Great work running pro-war propaganda, guys. So let's move on and talk about your boys in Ukrainistan. I want to show you this tweet to start here because this is not being a cheerleader for a foreign war is just weird, you guys. Oh my gosh. This is anonymous saying, not supporting Ukraine is a serious red flag. Anonymous is complete trash. They tweeted out honestly about Europe that people should be arrested for treason who repeat Russian propaganda, aka share the truth outside of the Western fucking narrative bullshit. That's the second time I've said the F word. I'm trying not to do it. Doing my best. So anyway, there's a lot of talk about the war in Ukrainistan lately, and I refer to it as Ukrainistan because it's the same exact thing as Afghanistan. It's a proxy that we're using to fight Russia with. We did this in the 80s. And how did that work out? Well, if you believe the official story, it ended with bin Laden attacking us on 9/11 and us invading Afghanistan and Iraq and losing billions of dollars in lives and still not controlling either of those countries on any legitimate level. Maybe we got what we wanted, though. Well, lately, Ukraine has been attacking Russian infrastructure and civilians with drones and whatever they can throw. And Russia finally hit back. They finally responded to what the Ukraine was doing. And this is from the 1st of July. So this is from a couple days ago. Let me show you this. Allegedly, I will say, this is not verified footage, but this is 11 here. That the premier palace in Kiev is on fire. NATO can hide no longer. This guy says the problem with Zelensky and NATO is they've mistaken Russia's professionalism as weakness, but they shall see what the Russians will do without any restraint. So they've kind of opened up this new front, and here is just kind of another example of what's been going on in this war that is not being covered allegedly in this war. This is the Russian propaganda side of the war. Let's zoom in a little bit here. This is Brandon Weichert, and he says, as I was saying today with Mario Nawfal, the Russian advance was just getting started. Game over. This is why Ukrainistan specifically struck Russia in the preceding weeks. Zelensky knew it was coming. And so this guy says, this is from RT, Russian propaganda. To restrain Konstantinova, Ukraine amassed 15K troops, including its most combat-ready units with Western weapons, Colonel General Sergei Rudovsky. Despite this, they failed to hold the city against the Russian advance. So you see all this kind of Russian propaganda going around, and it seems like, seems legit to me as far as I'm concerned. But then you have to see the Western media side of the story. And Russell Brand happened to share this the other day. And he said, how accurate do you think these reports are in response to this New York Post tweet about Russia losing 8 troops for every 1 Ukrainian soldier killed as army casualties skyrocket? Now, I had to jump in here because I'm a big fan of the Durin, and if you watch them, they're just very well spoken, well kind of read on these international conflicts, and what they had said, and I believe it was one of the Alexes who said this, Alex Cristofaro or Alexander Mercoris, one of the two. But they kind of said, and this is what I chimed in with, look at the numbers when they exchanged dead soldiers. This tells the truest story. And then I chimed in with, don't get mad, but I called in Grok, and I had to get the casualty numbers from Grok. So I said, Grok, what's the last time Russia and Ukraine exchanged the bodies of dead soldiers? What were the numbers? Grok says the most recent exchange was June 18th, 2026, last month. Russia returned 522 bodies identified as Ukrainian soldiers to Ukraine. Ukraine returned 33 Russian soldiers' bodies. These are verifiable numbers. I think that kind of what's the word? The balance of those numbers tells a story. 33 versus 500 something. These official figures, so earlier 2026 exchanges followed the same pattern. 1,000 Ukrainian bodies for 41 in April, 1,000 for 35-38 in February, January. These official figures from both sides' POW coordination centers show a consistent lopsided ratio in recovered remains. They provide one data point on losses, but aren't a complete casualty count due to recovery, identification, and territorial factors. So that is the realest number you are going to see on the Ukrainistan war as far as casualties go from anyone, because it's verified by both sides. Now, I also want to show you this. This is a recent update from Lord Bibo on what Russia is doing now, because Ukraine has been hitting their oil refineries, trying to make them energy, ruin their energy infrastructure exports. Russia, by the way, from what I've read, allegedly is doing really well exporting oil right now. They're making a ton of money. Their economy's humming along despite best efforts of the US and NATO. This is from Lord Bibo. It says, not a single intact gas station left on the highway. So this is Russia's response to them hitting the oil refineries. From Dnipro, is that how you say it? To Kharkiv. Drivers who can't refuel anywhere. Targeted gas stations are in, I don't even want to try to say that, Kharkiv, Zaporozhye, Sumy, Cherniv, Poltava regions. Ukraine's state emergency service. In response to Ukraine's attacks on Russia's oil refineries, Russia destroys Ukraine's gas stations. And here's footage of this. This is, of course, allegedly showing Ukrainian gas stations. Russia carried out one of the largest retaliatory strikes on Kiev. 7 major enterprises struck. So there you have it. That's where we're at right now. And I think Ukraine is probably going off right now like this because they want the money to keep flowing. That would be my biggest guess. And I think a lot of people are getting kickbacks from this, Republican and Democrat alike. The Democrats provably, this is verifiable fact, were funneling money through the Ukraine war budget to candidates. Ukraine war was a Democrat money laundering effort. Phone intercepts between officials in Ukraine were conspiring with federal workers at USAID to funnel $200 million sent by the U.S. government to Ukraine and launder it back to Biden's campaign in 2024. We were right about that money laundering operation from Ukraine to the DNC. So let's see.
Taxpayer money, route it through a series of transactions, move it into the United States, and launder it into Joe Biden's 2024 campaign and the Democratic National Committee.
Okay, so now that the Republicans are in charge, do you think that's going to change? Because I would venture that it is not. And here's the evidence that it is not. Laura Loomer now supports the war with Ukraine. There's no doubt in my mind they're funneling money to influencers on the right as well. And here, once some on the right realized that their fellow anti-Ukraine, this is not our war travelers, were sympathetic to Russia and Iran, are anti-Semitic, of course. Douglas Murray, this is what he had to say about people.
You're an anti-Semite.
Yeah, you don't support the Ukraine war? Guess what?
You're an anti-Semite.
In rooting for the destruction of post-war America-led order, they came back to appreciating how it's in the U.S.'s interest for Ukraine to prevail. Here's Laura Loomer. Very nice message from Ukraine's Zelensky on July 4th. I guess I missed Russia's congratulatory message today. Oh, yeah, because Russia's too busy working to destroy American superiority. So again, these people are getting paid to speak like this. And I just want to remind you real quick of a guy who once asked a very valid question, drawing a very valid parallel between 2 United States military operations in different parts of the world. And let's just listen to what this nice man
You
has
have
to say
been
here.
repeating several times that Russia should repay for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Do you believe Israel should repay for the reconstruction of Gaza, since they have destroyed almost all the strip and the civilian infrastructures? Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriele. It's definitely an interesting question on which I would not have any comment at this stage.
Oh, that's a God damn it. That's a copyright violation right there. I didn't know that was in there. But you get the idea. As soon as that you notice they cut his mic right away. And this is just to illustrate that the USA has zero moral high ground over Russia. How can we sit there and go like, oh, look what Putin's doing, he's a bad guy, as we do the same thing in the Middle East, in South America? And that brings us full circle back to the Middle East today for our last story. Our last story of the afternoon. What the hell is that? You have to ask yourselves, what the hell is that? What the hell is that?
You know nothing about nothing. You're fake news.
So there's a big push, obviously, to blame our greatest ally for what's going on in the Middle East, even though it's being done with our blessing, our money, our weapons, which we could easily cut at any time, in which I think the voters have largely spoken. They want, regardless of which party they prefer, they want that to happen. But this story, I think, kind of sheds a light on what's actually going on. And props to Craig Murray for actually doing some real reporting here. If you haven't seen this, you're in for an interesting surprise. So I put this together at the end of the show too, for obvious reasons. But let's discuss this, because this is a very interesting little story. The video is kind of long, so I'm going to skip around a little bit with it, but I think you'll get the idea. Let's start at the start, and then we'll just jump to the end. So this is Craig Murray, reporter, and he says 18 months on and U.S. control of their puppet Lebanese regime is now clear. This all makes perfect sense. So, our greatest ally, if you've been paying attention, they're doing very heavy bombing campaigns in the southern part of Lebanon and kind of moving north as they can. And this is the backdrop for that a lot of people don't see or haven't seen and maybe don't understand yet. So listen to
overlooking the construction of the new United States Embassy complex here in Beirut. What you're seeing there, that massive range of buildings, that's only a part of it. That's about a quarter of the new complex. It's being built here. That is the second largest embassy in the world, of any country anywhere in the world. The second largest embassy in the world is being constructed here in Beirut by the United States. And we can't find out officially from the State Department, but we understand that the complex is built to house 5,000 staff. I used to be an ambassador. I know what an embassy does. They're basic functions of an embassy. It can run political relations with the country. It issues visas. It can do press and public relations. It can administer aid. It can do defense cooperation. And most embassies have an intelligence section. But that is not an embassy. That is something 50 times the size of what an embassy would be in a country like this.
U.S. citizens are entitled to use enrolled in test.state.gov to receive under ensure you can be located in emergency. For Libra press 1, for American citizen services press 2, for directions
This is
press
funny.
3, for USAID press 5, for that and consular affairs press 6, for Congress press 7, goodbye.
It does that every time. Every time you press yes, it just says goodbye. Right, so I've just printed off the diplomatic list for the United States of America. These are always public information. They're public under the Vienna Convention. And they list the diplomatic staff of every embassy in the country. So you can, for example, look at the embassy of Lebanon in the United States and see how many staff it's got. And it has 7 diplomatic staff. And it also lists their spouses. It's a list of everybody with diplomatic immunity. That's why it's published under the Vienna Convention. The embassy of the United Kingdom to the United States of America is one of the world's larger embassies. It's an embassy between two of the wealthiest countries in the world, two of the top 8 economies. And as you'd expect, there are a lot of diplomats there handling relations. And it runs to, I think, 120 names, many of whom have spouses. And that's about, the size of a very large embassy. You'll have 120 diplomatic staff in a very large embassy. I could show you also here the Russian embassy to the United States, giving you an idea of, if you like, a hostile or opposed designated enemy mission. And that's slightly smaller. That's about 90 members of diplomatic staff. Then you have other staff who are not diplomats, who are support staff, who are clerical, who are cleaners, who are guards, whatever, who don't appear on the diplomatic list. So the total staff numbers, say, of the British embassy in Washington would be about 300 people, including everybody, including the guards and cleaners, typists, everyone. And the total number in the Russian embassy in Washington would be about 270 people. The total number in the Jordanian or the Lebanese embassy to the United States will be 20 people, something along those lines. None of those comes anywhere near 5,000 people, which is the amount of people the new massive so-called embassy. I am genuinely stumped.
So, this is interesting, given the backdrop of what's going on in the Middle East. And I had no idea about any of this, as most Americans probably don't. But I'm going to drop up. I'm going to jump up a little bit. So this is one of the things he talks about that I think is interesting. So I don't want to go through all this, but he kind of shows the strategic spot in Cyprus, very high mountain, and it shows you here how it gives the U.S. kind of a view of the region as a whole, where we can look at Iraq and Iran and, different parts of the region from that island of Cyprus, which is where Alex is at. The new embassy covers 43 acres behind construction of buildings. Look at this. So I'll let him kind of finish this off. I've been on much smaller farms than that, 43 acres. Let's listen to, we'll finish this.
Lebanon is an important country with vital American strategic interests, and that's of course true. I was British ambassador in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan was a vital strategic interest to the United States. It neighbors Afghanistan. It has a border with Afghanistan. And the Americans were fighting a war inside Afghanistan. And Uzbekistan provided a huge air base, a huge military base at Karshi Khanabad, which was vital to the logistic supply of the war in Afghanistan, and which had up to 20,000 American service personnel inside it. America also had a massive CIA station in Uzbekistan, and it was a center for the extraordinary rendition program. They were bringing people into Uzbekistan in order for them to be tortured. Uzbekistan is a country of 26 million people. Lebanon is a country of 5 million people. Uzbekistan has a GDP of $90 billion a year, whereas Lebanon has a GDP of $19 billion a year. So Uzbekistan, much bigger place, bigger US interest. There's even a bigger aid program in Uzbekistan than there is in Lebanon. And what was the diplomatic staff of the US embassy in Uzbekistan? About 70 people. What was the total staff of the US embassy in Uzbekistan? It was about 130 people. And we're talking here, in ostensibly a smaller operation, of a massive range of buildings containing up to 5,000 people. And I just can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you what they're doing. But what I can tell you is this. I've run embassies. I've worked in embassies. I've been inside countless embassies all over the world from all kinds of different nations. And I tell you this for certain. That building is not an embassy.
any means defeated because we're engaged in a war now in southern Lebanon. I would wish the following. Number one, and finally there seems to be some opening here. I've been advocating behind the scenes for this now for several months. Israel should support this Lebanese government. There has not been a better Lebanese government since the Syrians and Iranians assassinated Hariri. They are trying. Do they have all the capacity they need? No. But they are trying to set up a government in Lebanon that can deal with the threat that Hezbollah poses internally to Lebanon. And so rather than making their task even harder, work with this new government in Lebanon. See how far you can help them to go to disarm Hezbollah. But we see Hezbollah is not by any means defeated because we're engaged in a war now in southern Lebanon. I would wish the following. Number one,
Sorry about that. Well, there you go. Hillary Clinton broadly in support of what's going on in the Middle East with the Trump administration. And even though you didn't vote for Hillary, you got Hillary anyway, didn't you? You lucky devil, you lucky guy. When asked for his opinion on the Hillary Clinton's take on Lebanon, Trump had this to say.
I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a lot of bad ones.
Sarah Palin had
A lot
this
of
to
those
say.
in the lamestream media, they don't want to hear that.
Anyway, that's it for today. The duopoly sucks. And please, just whether you're right-leaning or left-leaning, take into account what is going on and how these extreme kind of caricatures of people's political positions are being used to manipulate you and make you emotional. And maybe in some cases even drive you to actual violence, where it's like this guy saying we need to hunt communists. You people screaming communism, the sky is falling because of communism. You're no better than the liberals who are calling Trump and a white nationalist. And I can't wait to put my piece out about Elon versus communism, because that's just the best, I think, dichotomy for this argument, the best kind of microcosm of the left versus right dynamic in America today is, Elon killed 1 million people by defunding USAID. Communism killed a zillion people because we tallied the numbers of a bunch of deaths that we have no proof of over years under different countries to make a point. And the person who wrote the book inflated the numbers and was criticized by the historians for doing, it's all a giant mess. So just don't buy any of it. Look at everything with a skeptical eye through have a healthy sense of skepticism, a healthy sense of skepticism for everything you see, whether it's cult, red cult, blue cult, regardless of what it is. And let's close out today by reminding people that we have boundaries, and sometimes you need to respect people's safe spaces.
Stop! Don't touch me there. This is my no-no square. Stop! Don't touch me there. This is my no-no square.
This lady in the front looks like about 5 or 6 different people that I've actually worked with in the past. But I also want to show you real quick before we go, one of my favorite videos of all time. And this is probably AI. I sincerely hope it isn't, but it probably is. But I love this video so much. If you've never seen this, enjoy. This is great stuff right here. Watch this. This is a javelina, a warthog with a leopard on its back. That is so good. This leopard's on his back, about to eat him. He runs over to the pond. That has to. Do you think that's real? Is that AI? That's so good. The gator grabs the cheetah. That's. It's got to be AI. It's too good to be real. It's just too good to be real. And last but not least, this is an oldie but a goodie. I'm going to take you out with tonight. This is the Hormuz film featuring Donald Trump and Netanyahu. And before I play you out with this, I just want to thank each and every one of you. My subscriber count has been slowly but surely rising. A little bit of a rant before I end here today. I definitely get conspiratorially minded about YouTube and censorship and like, oh, they're hiding my videos, this and that. But I do think, every once in a while I'll have a video that goes crazy viral, like this one I just did about Norm Finkelstein. And it's great because, I love Norman Finkelstein, and it's critical of one of his viewpoints, but it's not like disowning him in any way. I think it was very classy done. I did cuss maybe more than I should have during the course of creating it. But I will say that I really like the comments. And even there's people in the comments who are like, this sucks, your take is terrible, fuck you, I downvoted your video. And even those people, I'm like, thank you for at least watching it and commenting. Even if you didn't like it, I appreciate that you took the time to like engage with the video, even if you hated it, even if you think I'm a piece of shit, communist or fascist or whatever you want to call me. I definitely, and so that's the attitude I have to take with this, because with political content, it's par for the course. Someone's not going to like it. Someone's going to be mad about your take from the other side. So I try to practice what I preach, live my rhetoric, if you will. I got to stop saying if you will, but much like the cussing, I think I did a good job with the cussing on this episode. I'll pat myself on the back for that. But also, the whole crux of this rant was just to thank each and every one of you. I'm up to like almost 750 subs now, maybe cross that, but hard fought subscribers, each and every one of you. And I've been cranking out the content. I think some of it's fantastic. Some of it's not as good as it could be. I'm not going to lie to myself and say every video I post is amazing. And if it gets like shitty views and after, 3 months, it has 2-3 views, I'll kill it. I'll delete it. But all I'm doing is doing these live streams and then cutting it up into videos and throwing it up with the thumbnail. So I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you for listening to me on my soapbox once a week and listening to my videos and subscribing and paying, attention to what I'm saying and engaging again in the comments, whether you love it or hate it. I appreciate it. And so thank you again for doing that. And we're going to take you out today with the trailer for the Strait of Hormuz film starring AI. Of course, this is AI. Full disclosure, this is AI generated content, but great way to take y'all out today. And thank you again for tuning in. I will see you in the comments. Follow me on Twitter at RoadGrimes, and take good care of yourselves out there. Happy 4th of July, despite the lack of anything great to celebrate at the moment. But, I still love you, America. I still love you, people, because we're trying to vote our way. Anyway, I'll shut up. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.
Don't let go. Whatever you do, don't let go!
I'll never let go, Donnie.
I'm flying, Don! I'm flying! Please! Please, I need another trillion or so! Anything for you, BB.